point, and that's almost what a victory looks like at this stage in the war. And to discuss a little bit more, we're joined by Ariel Cohen, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council, as well as a founder of the International Market Analysis. He's joining us from Washington. Ariel, I know that you have argued that victory in Iran is a non-negotiable, but we're discussing here in studio, what does that victory actually look like 4 weeks into this ongoing campaign?
Thank you for having me. You're referring to my article that just came out in The National Interest. It's nationalinterest.org. The article argues that the victory in Iran needs to be put in a context of U.S. competition with China, U.S. competition against Russian, Chinese, North Korean, Iranian axis. We need to put it in a global context. And what we're learning in this war is that the United States was not prepared with the military power to take out what it needs to be taken out to force the victory on the Iranian regime. Moreover, we did not, the United States did not, and Israel did not prepare the Iranian people, both for a popular uprising, but more importantly, to arm the resistance, those who could go out and themselves gain freedom, fight for the victory, fight for liberation against the totalitarian Shia theocratic dictatorship that murdered 30,000 people in 2 weeks, that raped their women, that murdered their men. And this is a, for lack of a better word, a fascist regime that the Iranian people, first and foremost, should not tolerate. We did not help enough. And most importantly, if we are running out of missiles, the United States, there's a huge kerfuffle in Washington that we're running out of the Tomahawks, we're running out of anti-missile missiles, missile defenses. What does that tell you about the greater situation in which the Trump administration finds itself in its competition with communist China?
So what is at stake here, not just for Israel and the United States, but for global order, as you've argued?
Exactly. So let's take the Gulf for 1 second. The United States was an exporter of security to the Gulf. The Gulf rich Arab countries were the customers, the buyers of American security to the tunes of hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars of weapons, of hosting military bases in Qatar, in UAE, et cetera, in Saudi, et cetera, et cetera. The United States now, if it doesn't break the backbone of this Shia totalitarian dictatorship, demonstrates that it cannot protect its allies. It cannot protect Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, et cetera. What does it mean? It means that Russia and China can make bolder moves on the global map. If they can, Russia can threaten Europe, China can threaten Taiwan and the rest of Asia Pacific. So what's at stake? As I said, as we say in Pesach, in Passover, Bechol dor vador, in every generation, the totalitarians are threatening the survival of freedom and democracy. The Iranians are the worst, the most horrible totalitarian regime, worse than Saddam, worse than, you name it, Saudi and Qatar. And if the United States and Israel did not build a coalition, we did not bring the Europeans, we did not bring the Asians who are importing that oil from the Gulf. What does it mean if, God forbid, the balloon goes up at a greater European theater or Asian theater war, and the United States finds itself too weak, too disorganized, and not armed enough to protect global freedom?
So what needs to happen next, Ariel? Today alone, CENTCOM announced that the USS Tripoli, with 3,500 sailors and Marines, it's now in its area of responsibility. But as Israel and the United States exhaust some of its military targets, what is next for these troops to do? How long could this continue?
3,500 is a brigade minus. It is probably not sufficient to take and hold Kharg Island with the Iranian oil terminal. It may be sufficient with some other troops to take some of the Iranian occupied islands that belong to UAE in the Persian Gulf. It is not sufficient to protect shipping of oil and liquefied natural gas, LNG. The LNG production of Qatar, I've seen numbers from 17% to 25%. Let's, for a round number, take 20%. That's a huge number that is off the market globally. The natural gas prices in Europe are 7 times higher than in the United States. Thank goodness the United States is energy self-sufficient, but Europe is not. Asia is not. And it is an imperative to prevent a spiral of a global inflation and of a major global recession, economic recession, to clear the strait, clear the Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz, clear the Persian Gulf of the Iranian threat. And I hate to say it, the Marine Expeditionary Force here, the other expeditionary force there, the Shayetet, the Israeli seaborne special forces, are not sufficient for that. Even if they took the coastal area of the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranians still can launch missiles and drones from the inland, from tens and hundreds of kilometers more inside, and knock out the tankers, which will mean the shipment of oil and LNG is not safe. So the US needs to start thinking of rearming itself, not just for the Gulf, but for the Asian theater and for Europe. I spent 30 plus years in Washington, and we always talked about how US is going to fight maybe one regional war, maybe two regional war, maybe 1.5. No, we are at a point where demonstrating weakness and a big global conflict, unfortunately, may be up upon us. And the best way to prevent it is to arm US and our allies in Europe to our teeth and deter China, Russia, and other enemies of freedom like Iran.
All right, Ariel Cohen, interesting zoom out to the big picture there. Thanks so much for being with us on i24 News this evening. We appreciate your insight.